Oh, and with that, we should be good. No, goodbye, music. Goodbye.
Shh. This is a library.
Yeah, I know. I'm reading my book too.
Yeah.
This is definitely a book.
The whole stream's gonna just be this.
Okay. Yeah. That's good. It's good to know. Yeah. I'm just gonna keep reading Sonic Lost World.
Yeah.
It's okay.
What the fuck book is that?
This is a book.
What are you doing? Okay. All right. Nope.
This is a book.
Can't do that. Hammered Out is starting.
See, look, it's got pages.
This is not okay.
It's got pages. It's a book.
No, it's got... that doesn't count. You can't check that out of the library, sir. That's not... No. That's not happening. That's it.
Fine. I'll read... You know what? Here. I'll read a different video game. I have Zelda the Ocarina of Time.
Look at you. You ruined the joke.
This one's actually a book.
We were going to have an hour-and-a-half show of just us sitting there looking at books, and you fucked it up. I'm mad about this. This is... Everybody, press H in the chat if you're mad at Cirrus today. Welcome to Hammered Out.
Yeah.
It's Thursday. Cirrus's hammer is terrible.
It's very limp.
Why is this happening? I'm seeing some H's. There's only a couple. Nobody cares about hating on you. So, there's J's. What does J mean? What is going on? I don't even know. But
oof.
Yeah. The whole thing is done. But hello, guys. We've come on here. It's been a while for Hammered Out.
Also, thank you very much for the OWO $10, Zalrock Chaos. OWO $10.
Oh, well, 10. Okay.
I would also like to formally thank, when I did my last World of Warcraft stream, I would like to thank everybody who did donate during that stream, specifically for the purpose of getting us tendies. It was tendy money.
Hold on a second. I'm going
to... UK Ocean.
Tendies.
You don't know what tendies are?
I know what tendies are, but I've decided to say that that's how you spell it. I put it in the chat.
Tendies. Damn it.
Everybody needs to get your tendies.
Pikachu's Emiya Pikachu said that was a big tendy. Yeah, it was a 24 tender bucket of tendies. It was great. I mean, it was for everybody in the house, but it was still good.
Chimkin tendy. Okay. All right. What is happening?
Chimkin tendies.
You guys are out of the world. So, a couple of things have changed. I'm missing a beard.
Yeah.
It ran away.
You also look like it's sunset over where you are.
It does. I've
even though
my lighting
it's
scheme just a little bit.
I've changed mine as well. Obviously, the camera angle and
you moved the camera. Everything sucks.
Yeah, it's okay. You do too, but we don't. I have a picture for what's probably. I don't have my phone with me, so I can't show it. But you've seen Mulan, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you know what? Here,
I did get away with. I'm not completely uncultured, sir. So I've managed to.
Okay.
I got away with seeing Mulan in theaters. I think
you got away with seeing Mulan in theaters.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a picture to send you. Do you have a messenger of some type open that I can send you a thing on?
I got Discord.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna send it to you on Discord, just so you know what you look like right now.
What do I? Uh-oh.
Yeah. Here you go.
What's happening? What have you done?
Here. This is. I'm also gonna.
Did you
show
put that over
everybody
me?
In the chat.
Is that what's happening? Is this what's going on? All right.
Yep, that's you now.
This is the world that we're in.
This is you now.
Oh, Jesus. Why do I put up with going on stuff with Cirrus? Why do I do this?
I don't know why.
No, the beard is still omnipotent, even though it's smaller. So the only thing that the beard needs to be in order to be omnipotent is to grow. And despite being cut, it is still able to do everything logically possible within its nature and is therefore omnipotent. So, sorry, guys.
Also, we have 2 super chats. One is from Jade Scarlet. It's $1. Has no context. Excellent. I love no context super chats. And then we have $5 from Connor Johnson. Hello, have you heard about the British animated series on Netflix called Hilda? It's a phenomenal series on all fronts that deserves to be watched. I have not heard about it yet.
I've not either. I saw that come up and I was like, hey, plug. So we've walked in here without too much of a topic idea. We wanted to put it out to the audience as well, but we also thought that we would discuss this bloody election that we've been having as well a little bit, which I don't know. I guess that, Cirrus, you don't have any opinions whatsoever on the election as it's been happening, or even the debates, or nothing. You're just like completely apolitical.
God damn it,
aren't you? Like I've never heard a political opinion from you. I don't even know if you're left or right. Like, this whole channel is stays pretty safe, I think, in the subject.
Okay. Yeah, for some reason I tried to put my face up, and it I forgot that only works when I'm pulling from my camera and not from Zoom. So my face was just League of Legends twice and a chat. You know what? Great. Perfect. Excellent. Excellent. 110%. Here we are. Also, there was a mention in the chat, red pills are better than bread pills. I agree with you, as long as you don't use any water when you try to take them. But that's just me.
Wow. All right.
That's me saying you can take your opinion and choke on it. There you go.
So as far as like, and just like, drop some subjects in the chat if you guys want to, but we might be talking about the first a couple of updates, because people are mentioning in the chat as well about Lee Strobel and Jordan Peterson.
I don't know. I actually don't understand anything at all.
Is that your Jordan Peterson?
No, so when I did the Lee Strobel one, I made my voice very like breathy during it. But I just accidentally slipped into my Jordan Peterson. Oops. Everybody,
yeah, you kind of did just a little bit.
Everybody makes mistakes. My parents made me, but I'm still here.
Oh, Jesus. My method for imitating Jordan Peterson's voice is to imagine myself as Kermit the Frog, if he was a youper with a subtle lobster fetish. That's my general go-to. And then we come out with something that's more like this. But it's the day that I recorded for Zod. I walked around the house listening to recordings of Jordan Peterson and talking at the same time as them for about an hour.
You know what sucks about the Lee? So that's how I did the Lee Strobel one as well. Here's the thing that sucks, though. If you've ever actually listened to a Lee Strobel, if you've ever listened to any of his presentations, his voice is so run-of-the-mill Joe Schmo that emulating it is hard, because there's nothing to grab onto. There's nothing there. Normally, you take like one aspect of their voice.
Like, there's that thing. It's like, that's definitely Lee Strobel, and I don't think that exists.
It doesn't. Whereas, it's too common. It's too easy, and that's what makes it difficult, which sucks so bad.
I do challenge Neil the 604 Atheist to a duel, where, you know, I will be armed with a lobster, he will be armed with a banana, and we will fight to the death. At the next Faithless Forum, I guess.
Is the lobster going to be Callan?
Sure.
You've seen the memes from that, right?
No.
You've not seen Callan the lobster?
No, I haven't seen Callan the lobster.
What? How have you not seen that?
No.
Oh.
This is not a thing that I've seen or been exposed to.
You? Oh my God. Hold up.
Someone says, Ocean Keltoy, as a necromancer, what is your stance on seances? I'm for them. You know, you just got to treat them, you know, pretty deathly serious. That's all that is.
All right, guys, that's been enough of Hammered Out today. I hope you guys enjoyed.
It's difficult capturing the spirit of a seance, but
Oh my God, where is it? I need Callan the lobster. Where are you? I know I have this image. Where has it disappeared to?
What image are you looking for?
It literally, it is Callan as a lobster.
Really?
Yes.
I'm
I'm dead
seen
serious.
this at all. It's a joke involving Callan. Like, she's a good friend of mine. I have no idea. This is okay. Anyway, we will get onto the election at some point. But I also had an appearance on Telltale's channel recently, today. So I
You've been
went
everywhere.
I was on Prophet Assad's channel and your channel and Telltale's channel and today.
Yeah, you've been everywhere.
I'm omnipresent everywhere except for my channel.
Hey, you've got the omnipotent beard and it's omnipresent. So honestly, we're at that point now where I think we can say that you are nigh unto a god. Is that about right?
That's something. I think that yeah, we're getting close there. I think, what do I have to be? I have to be omnibenevolent next, which means I have to contradict the other categories that I've already fallen into. Which isn't going to happen because I'm a terrible person, but that's beside the point. The Jordan Peterson that was on POZ's channel, that was my voice.
Yep, I was the Lee Strobel, he was the Jordan Peterson, and Neil
the 604 Atheist, his voice, like, you can't hear that man in his Ray Comfort. Like, his Ray Comfort voice is so damn spot on. You're still looking for that image.
Yes, I am. That is in fact what I'm doing. Okay, so you know that I get a lot of fan art. Yeah. I'm trying to find the fan art of Callan in the sea of fan art that exists, and I'm seeing such weird shit.
So you're on like a journey.
I forgot that Jack and Quill did this. This is me as Dark Magician Girl. I forgot about that.
People are saying, Kirix, that you're the 18th person that said that they thought that he was using just Jordan Peterson clips. No, that was me. I have the audio clips to prove it. I did include a Jordan Peterson getting mad at how often the host was interrupting, but it wasn't used, unfortunately.
Aha! I have found it!
Okay.
Here you go, Ocean. Enjoy.
Oh no.
Callan the lobster.
What is happening?
I'm also going to throw it in chat.
Oh my god, that's amazing. I love that.
Because when we were doing we were tackling a video from a bunch of Catholic students that were arguing against trans rights, and they tried to compare trans people to furries, and Callan just in the episode just started going, "But I want to be a lobster, Cirrus."
Being a lobster is it's not a very good thing to go for in life. There's I think it's reductive and even childish to go about.
How many times are you going to say reductive and even
childish? That's from the script. So I found that his way of saying and even childish was I feel like I nailed Jordan Peterson in that moment for at the most. But everything with Jordan Peterson is reductive and even childish. I think that any interpretation of anything that doesn't involve a reference to Dostoevsky is reductive and even childish. So there's that. Let's see.
You have a question from Jade. What do you feel about tarot cards?
Tarot? Get out of my house. Tarot cards. So
tarot. It's tarot now.
Says my dad flipped out when found tarot cards. Tarot cards are, I think they originate with Renaissance era, later paganism. They're a form of divination through luck, very similar to dice rolling.
Yeah, I find them. I personally find them to be silly, but that's just me.
Right, they're not found in a Reconstruction faith necessarily. But the form of divination that is used, if you find value in divination through luck practice, which is what a lot of those things are when it comes to dice rolling, coin flipping, I will at times when I need to make a decision flip a coin and then trust the decision of the coin. I have to respect the coin.
I'm okay with that one, because that one's more just recognizing that you can't make the decision on your own.
Right.
So you're relying on an outside force. The outside force could be anything. It's no different than consulting your friend's
it's
opinion.
Just luck, right?
Yeah, you can consult your friend's opinion.
But I'm acknowledging
on
that it's just luck. So with tarot cards and most forms of divination, what's going on is that they're putting something out there into the dialogue of the universe or whatever it is, or invoking deity and whatever, and then going through a ritual that can then be whatever it is that influences luck. That's like the idea behind it. My opinion on tarot cards, I personally don't use them, but I don't really have a problem with people using them. As long as you're not using them as a way to be like, the universe has told me exactly what is happening, and then taking them as like gospel truth. With tarot cards, you're getting an opinion. Whether or not that opinion is, or that is the opinion of, is completely up to the person that's using the tarot cards. But whatever the case, it's not going to be something that's like hands down. Like you're getting something. And there's like several ways to interpret tarot cards from what I've done. I'm not an expert on them. I bought a deck a while ago at an art shop that was really pretty because I just like the art in it. But
I'm being an asshole.
What did you do? What did you fucking do?
Look in the chat.
I'm not even.
This isn't older, but because I'm looking through the older fan art now, I just happened across this, and I'm just like, you know what, we're gonna use it. Thanks, Jack and Quill.
But yeah, Jade. So I think that the real issue with Jade Scarlet and her situation is the dad flipping the shit and called them pagan worship. If you're not using them to like, first, if you're using them for pagan reasons, that's fine. Second, if you're not, that should be easily explained. It's tarot cards come from the same lineage as bicycle cards. So like bicycle cards and tarot cards are heavily related. So if you're playing solitaire, it's the same kind of like, you can put the same kind of spiritual value on those.
You know what? We're at this stage of the conversation, Ocean.
What's going on?
This conversation's been nothing but cards.
And in point of fact, Magic the Gathering cards and tarot cards would also be from the same lineage. So let's put that fire out right now.
All right.
Like
Ocean.
tarot cards just happen to be antiquated.
It's time. It's time. We're here. We have to fucking play fucking waifu wars here live in front of our hammered out audience. This is where Ocean remembers suddenly that he actually does have a deck.
I do have a deck. It's hiding. I think it's on my bookshelf. Let's see. Jade Scarlet says, my reason for having them wasn't really pagan, though I'm going that way. He is heavily Christian to the point of absurdity, so he doesn't get to know that. Yeah, I feel that. I mentioned on Telltale's podcast a little bit about the broom closet. A lot of pagans in the South, especially, are in the broom closet, where we're not out to anybody in family or anything like that. We're not out to even general society. But we are out to like our close friends or something like that. And it's, there's the coming out process is comparable to a lot of anything that involves the coming out process. Atheism as well, I think, has a little bit of that.
It does. There's a moment when you're having the conversation and they're just like, well, I'm gonna have to respect your beliefs even though I think you're gonna be burning in hell. And like you just wanna be that. If you're an atheist, you just wanna like snap back. What beliefs? I've literally just told you I don't have any.
But atheists take affirmative positions on. I'm sorry. Atheists are Christians even if they don't know it or understand it.
Okay. Mia Power in the chat. I'm okay sorting it out with Commander. I have that too. However, if I were to go in card game preference orders, Commander does not rank very high.
But I want to back up Jade real quick. as well, and just be like, if you are heading towards paganism or experimenting with it or whatever, wherever you wind up on that, if your dad is reacting that way, yeah, he's not invited to the conversation that you're having about it. You know, like you can involve whoever you want to in that conversation, but somebody who's just going to be attacking you for being different, then it's not okay.
Just go. I thought Christians were the ones who were supposed to be persecuted. What the fuck is this?
Right. That's don't do that.
Yeah, remember.
But yeah,
when I
good luck
say
exploring, but
when I say things, it's not because they are the most constructive things to say. When I say things, please view them through the lens of this is what Cyrus would say if an audience was watching him and he wanted them to clap. Not necessarily that he wanted to actually be constructive in this conversation.
So, yeah. There's people that are invited to your journey of self-exploration, and there's people who actively get disinvited from your journey of personal exploration. And I think that somebody who freaks out because of a deck of cards, not the person you want to invite to your journey of self-exploration.
Probably. I would agree with that. For the same reason that, like, there are people who I just won't talk about my channel with, because I recognize that in so doing, I'll just be inviting them to be assholes about it. And I know that.
Yeah.
However, those people do be careful. Those people tend to start out not being invited to that particular conversation and slowly just find a way to work themselves out of your life. So if they're people that you want to keep in your life for any reason, be cognizant of the fact that you usually end up slowly filtering those people out. If you want them there, you're going to have to make an active effort to keep them there.
Yeah. So Jade just dropped a bomb in the chat, saying that she said that it's very telling that it was easier to tell them that she's trans than it is to tell them that she's not Christian.
Well, that's because the conversation that's if you're dealing with a hyper fundamentalist, it's easier to frame a conversation around, well, scientifically this says this, so I'm this, like the science is sound on that. You don't get to hide behind, not saying you're hiding behind science. It's not what anybody's doing.
You don't get to use science as a tool in the conversation.
Yeah, you don't get to use something. You don't get to appeal to any authority when it comes to your beliefs.
Right.
You don't. You get to fight on your own terms, and depending on how good you are at stumping people in conversations, fighting that battle on your own terms without something to appeal to is a really messy conflict.
Right. And I'm using she/his pronouns. Let me know if I'm correct on that, Jade. I'm assuming. But yeah, damn. I've heard because pagan community has there's a lot of trans people in the pagan community.
It's almost like people who get routinely ostracized end up gravitating towards one another.
Right, and there's a conversation to be had about alternative religions attracting alternative lifestyles and that kind of thing, and that winds up, there's a huge social conversation to be had on that, but it varies on which they find to be more difficult to talk about or to come out about. And part of it is, I think, as well, is with trans identity, it's harder to hide once you're transitioning.
Yeah. You can only say no. I'm like, for instance, if you're taking hormones,
right.
I'm not going to say the person's name, but I do have a friend who had this issue with their family, and they were transitioning. They were on hormones, and one of their fears were, I'm going to be on hormones. After about month 5 or 6, it's not like I'm going to be able to just hide that anymore. That's going to be pretty obvious after a certain point.
Yeah, but with being pagan, unless somebody asks and you deem it that they're worthy of actually having the conversation with, then you don't have to talk about it. or you don't necessarily have to, unless there's like a issue about like with your job and certain rights that you want to have or anything, something like that. There's certain times when it does come into functionality, or if you just want to be like, look, I should be able to talk about this, therefore I will. And but you don't. It's a little bit different when it comes to. There's nothing like necessarily visual about it. Like I wear this Mjolnir, but that's like a choice I make.
Yeah, like
I can just I can and have just put it under my shirt in certain situations, like if I'm working for a church or something like that, which I have done before.
And it's like I can hide. Like I don't know how effective I've been at it, but I can generally hide the fact that I'm poly, for instance, from like the only person in my family who knows that is my mom.
Right.
I can generally hide that from most people there. It just gets a little harder when, as has happened recently. Doors opened, family comes into the house to hang out for a bit, and they go, oh, so has Erin moved her bedroom into her area? And we just kind of all look at each other and go, her bed's in the same room as ours. So it's there. That's where it is.
That's where it is.
That gets a little it's a little harder to like hide that, but to be fair, I do think that
it gets in your house though, so like
yeah.
if you're inviting somebody into your house, you open that risk.
Yeah, and telling my family they can't come into my house would be kind of a weird weird proposition. Emmett says it's going to be even more fun when she gets there. Yeah, it is. It's like, oh, is she sleeping on the couch? Like, no, she's sleeping in there too. That's Emmett's for dinner, Grandma.
Jade says, I'd agree. I'm about 5 months on hormones, so you can tell. And to be honest, yeah, it is inherently harder to hide. That makes a lot of sense. There's another question that we had up there. Thoughts on people who say witch in the non-fairy tale sense should be only a term used by women. I personally find to be bollocks. I do too. Warlock has I've used wizard before but ironically, I haven't used witch personally because it's not a term that I'm personally interested in using. It doesn't quite line up with the heathen tradition necessarily. It's more of a Celtic thing.
Because I was about to say your style of ritual doesn't adhere itself so much with that term terribly well.
Right, but if you wanted to have a broad definition of witchcraft, ritual that we do would fit into it. So
yeah, if you wanted to, but the broad, so you know how broad you can get with the definition of witchcraft, though, especially for like a fundamentalist Christian, anything that's not part of their religion can just be called witchcraft.
I read Harry Potter yesterday. That's witchcraft, but as far as it being a gender exclusive term, I've known enough men that use the term witch to define themselves, and I've listened to the reasons why they do it. Makes all the sense in the world. I don't think that it should be a gender exclusive term.
Marcelex in the chat says that, do you think that white people can come out as atheist easier than people of color? So as we're both white people, it's hard for me to say.
I can tell you that from what people that I know that have come out as people of color, both as atheists and pagans, much harder if you're black.
The community is rooted very. So remember, I'm a white person talking about this, so my experience isn't that great. However, I do know that the neighborhood I was in was primarily black people. Like, I was the white kid on the street, and that's why I got beat up. But in that neighborhood, every house was incredibly religious.
Yeah,
it was. Whereas here, a lot of people can just kind of be cultural Christians where, yeah, they're Christian and everybody else around them is, and they celebrate Christmas at church, and past that, that's it. The African-American households around me, it was baked into their culture much more than it was
civil rights movement. Civil rights movement was heavily rooted in Christianity. So,
freaking Martin Luther King was a pastor.
Yeah. The justification that I've heard is that oftentimes leaving Christianity can be a betrayal in that context because of its heavy association with civil rights. And that goes for Islam as well. If you're leaving Islam from the American cultural background, because of its relation to the same relation to the civil rights movement. So yeah, but you know, again, as far as like the remainder of like, because there's a ton of experiences to discuss there, and we're a couple of white guys, so
yeah, like I can't speak.
We can pontificate, but we can't like speak from any sort of.
I can point out what the culture was like where I was, and I can say what I experienced, but I can't say what somebody else experiences. I can say what historically has happened with certain minority groups. I can say that it's harder to not be Catholic if you are Hispanic, for instance, especially here in the South as we get closer and closer to the border, therefore closer and closer to like regional roots. There's a lot of Catholicism there, and it's not quite so easy to get away from that, from what's been explained to me. And then your evangelical, like Baptist style Christianity, it's very hard to get away from that for people of color. And then I don't know what, but see, here's the thing: it's hard. There's
a cultural connection there with Korean culture as well, Americanized Korean culture. There's a lot of evangelical Christianity or some kind of Christianity in there that I've bumped into, but I'm not super familiar with. So that I'm sure that there's a huge conversation to be had there as well. I just don't know what it is personally.
Galactic Halo asks, it's probably awkward, but how do I tell my parents that me being gay isn't linked with me recently being diagnosed with autism?
They're completely unrelated.
The two things have nothing to do with one another. And if your parents want to, bear in mind, this is confrontational Cirrus. This is like put his foot down style Cirrus. But if your parents wanted to link you being gay with autism, I would be the type of person that would look at them and go, well, that explains why mental issues probably explains why you two are still together as well. Like, that's confrontational Cirrus that's looking for, like, the low blow. In reality, though, pointing out that the two are not linked in any way, shape, or form is the best thing to do if you're not trying to go for, like, a type of gotcha of any kind.
It gauges the situation, though, because sometimes, like, it really depends on, like, what your living situation is and that kind of stuff. Like, because if you're living independent of your parents and you're, operating on your own, there's a certain amount of confrontational liberties that you have with parents that are saying stuff like that. If your life is dependent on your parents in some way, you gotta gauge.
It's very hard to determine where you should have those conversations. Like freaking Telltale, actually, you were just on Telltale's channel, so Telltale's argument for this has basically been, if you don't think you're safe, the closet is safe. Stay there as long as you need to until you have the liberties to do so. Like, don't shoot yourself in the foot on principle, because the only person who cares about your principles is you.
Yeah. And so there's we're talking to people that are like Cirrus. Am I a pragmatist, Cirrus? I think I probably am.
You might.
I have pragmatist traits.
I am a pragmatist, and we agree on method 9 times out of 10, which would lead me to believe that you probably are in some form or fashion.
We can pragmatically label me as a pragmatist. So
that would be an ad hoc labeling. That's an ad hoc rationalization for your actions.
Right, but it's useful. So
that's literally why ad hoc exists, you numbnuts. Damn it. God damn it. Specifically your god, please. All of them at once in one giant celestial orgy. Just damn it.
So anyway, I totally agree with that point from Telltale that the closet is, if you're in a situation that's not safe, the closet is safe. And sometimes you just kind of have to weather the situation until you have the freedom to deal with it. And that changes significantly if there is like But if it's something where that limitation, it doesn't get into that realm, then yeah, you need to weather the storm with the closet, and if, like, just find a way out. And there's methods of getting out. There's like, it's not something I talk about a lot, but I was not too far from the streets in high school for a little while, and for various reasons. There's a whole thing there, but I wound up getting a job fairly quickly and renting not a couch but a chair from a friend of mine in their house, and managed to. I had like a little bit of savings, and I got their family internet hooked up and all that stuff. This is back when it wasn't like super standard to have high-speed internet.
Mm-hmm.
But I got that hooked up for them so that it was like, this is the thing that I will contribute as kind of like a down payment kind of thing. And then I just like worked out that dynamic for longer than I should have had to. So that, like, there's kind of ways that if you can network your way into getting into a better situation. And that situation, as like challenging as it was better than the situation that I was in at the time. So, sometimes you just got to make something work, and it can be difficult to find the motivation to do that and that kind of thing. But you have to wait till you're able to legally pull it off, which in the situation that I was in, I was 18. So
yeah, you don't want to be like
that.
If you're like, let me paint a slightly reductive scenario.
Reductive and even childish.
God damn it. But in the scenario, reductive as it is still one that people find themselves in today, like pretty regularly. You're in a fundamental Christian household, and this Christian household happens to be very anti-gay. Like, you hear, like, fucking, let's just call it an NIFB household. Why not?
Yeah.
Just
let's call it.
Super, right there.
Good example.
So you're in that household, and you don't agree with. You might even still be Christian, just not their brand of Christian. But you want to come out as gay because you want to be honest with your parents, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to be honest with your parents. However, you recognize, though, that these are people who have been instructed, or at least believe that they are in the right to do so, to harm you physically or mentally if you come out. If you're in one of these scenarios, treat the harm they would do to you as if they are somebody with a gun. You do not provoke the person with the gun. It's good for your protection to not do so. Once you can say whatever the fuck you want about them, and even confront them once the gun has been removed. But if the gun is there, you do not provoke this person. Their power over you is the gun. Treat it as such. So never use their gun to shoot yourself in the foot when you can otherwise be safe. Because again, the only thing you're standing on at that point is your principles. And I'm sorry, from me, as a person who would like to say I at least care about my audience a little bit, I care more about your safety than your principles. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you can safely act on your principles, then do so. But you need to make sure that you can safely act on them. Because when it comes to like where you're living and your day-to-day livelihood and that kind of thing, you don't need to put yourself in like actual danger to stand on your principles. Especially in that particular situation where you are literally pretty powerless. Speaking of, though, for anybody that is kind of wants to get into an information hunting scenario, there are in some states ways to be emancipated at 16. Mm-hmm. And a few friends of mine did that in high school because they needed to. And it's like a buddy of mine in high school got it. Like, he was in a situation in which he was going to be forced to drop out of school. Rather than do that, he took a part-time gig at a mechanic shop and got emancipated and continued going to school and graduated. And and good on him. But he managed to figure out a way to do that. I don't know all the particulars about how he managed to do that, but we were out in the country where you can kind of pull off stuff like that. It's harder to do that stuff in the city because of living expenses.
Not to mention living expenses, but like when you're out in the country, there's usually a lot more space between you and potential harmful people.
Yeah.
In the city, you're kind of
stuck.
Condensed a little bit.
Right. But this is like where I grew up was like outside of suburbia, man. Like we were really far out there. And but this guy is a friend, went through that process, and like if you're not bringing up religion and you're not bringing up, you're just saying, look, I'm in a frustrating situation in this household, here's my reasons for leaving. A lot of times you can use the kind of like the elements of small town politics to your advantage if you know how to play, and you can get something to work out. It's a matter of getting things done.
Small town politics is fun. It basically ends up being a lot of like build up social capital without people knowing that you're specifically building up social capital,
right?
And then using that to your advantage later. Like it's awkward, but it's doable. Like luckily the neighborhood that I lived in was very much that type of way. Like you could tell who was in with who and who's, even though it was a condensed like ghetto essentially, a lot of the same mechanics were at play.
Yeah. Yeah, that was there's a million ways to just try to figure out those kind of situations. It really depends on like a lot of individual specifics. And what I'm familiar with is like out in the middle of nowhere kind of stuff. So, but that's a particular thing. Somebody that has similar experiences in the city might be able to tell you it's even easier. I don't know. But out there in the middle of nowhere, I know a guy that set up a tent and continued going to school. And he would just move the tent around. That's drastic, but he was in a particular situation that called for that.
Also, we have a fan art that was submitted that is in there. I didn't get to it like as it came out. It happened half an hour ago, and I'm a horrible person, and I'm sorry. But it is a Kitsune Femsurus. So thank you very much for that. Because what else would it be? What else? Really?
I love your audience.
You know what? And I want to say my audience loves me too. I know I love my audience, but I am somewhat concerned with how much I think my audience might love me, and the particular brand of love may, in fact, be a little dangerous in some ways. In saying that, that brings me to something that I wanted to bring up to you, Ocean.
Uh-oh.
Actually,
no.
Are you familiar?
The answer's no.
Are you familiar with the concept of yandere?
The answer is actually no. I have no idea what that is.
You have no idea what that is?
Yandere.
Yeah, Google it. In fact, actually,
no.
Google the look at Google the
chat. Should I be doing this?
First, Google yandere and then click the image search.
How do I fucking spell that?
Yandara or ERA.
All right, a couple of people. I have one yes and one oh God, please no. Do it, Ocean. Learn him, Surus. Oh God, no. Do it.
Do it.
Chat,
Do it, Ocean.
I feel like half of you are looking out for my best interest, and half of you are looking out for Surus's ability to troll me. So I'm going to do it. Here we go. Enter. Yandere yoga teacher.
Okay, that's not... What is the definition? What is the definition of yandere?
Is it Yandara? Or is it different than that?
Yandere.
ERE. Uh-oh. A Japanese term for a person who is initially very loving and gentle to someone, before their devotion becomes destructive in nature, often through violence or brutality. So did you ever see the movie Dario Argento's Jennifer?
No, I haven't.
It's like the textbook example of that, I think. Except she eats the cat.
Usually the textbook example that people bring, granted, I'm going to say a thing that I know you haven't seen, which is like
I need to now do the image search. What am I doing here?
Yeah, just click on images and you'll see what
it's all like schoolgirls with knives.
Yep.
And blood everywhere.
One of the ones in particular there, her name is Yuno, and she is from an anime called Miraniki, or Future Diary. Yuno is responsible for a lot of murder.
Why do we... You fucking weeaboo. Okay, anyway,
here's the reason I bring this up. So, in looking at Yuno's actions, where she obsesses over the people who she loves to the point of brutalizing them or brutalizing everybody around her if she thinks that they love or even like somebody other than her in any capacity, I came to a conclusion.
It turns into gore.
Yes, of course it does. What do you expect? But I came to a conclusion a few streams ago, and that is that Yahweh, and by extension Allah, are yanderes.
No!
They necessarily are.
Oh, God.
They necessarily are.
Oh.
Now that we've gotten that established, my video for Tuesday, which you, of course, Ocean, will be able to see early because you're a patron, my video for Tuesday is going to be God is a Yandere, where I'm going to be pulling passages from Scripture that prove my point that God is in fact a yandere anime girl who wants to murder everybody who loves her senpai, and her senpai is the human race. Ocean, are you okay?
Chat, save me from this fucker. Wait, why? What? Oh my goodness. Okay. What have you done?
What have I done? Okay, have you played?
It's kind of beautiful. I will say that the idea of that does turn Yahweh into a very dangerous kawaii schoolgirl, though. That's okay.
So you asked me what I've done.
Why?
You asked me what I've done, but I'm gonna respond to you the same way that Dracula responded to Richter Belmont in Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
That was a lot of words.
It was not by my hand that this idea is given flesh. It was called here by humans who wish to pay it tribute. I'm sorry. Symphony of the Night has some wonderful quotes. I'm going to read a couple more for a second.
MUI Pikachu Windows shutdown noise. Yep, that's exactly what's happened to me.
But you know what? So I'm going to also restructure another quote from Dracula from this game. What is a god? Nothing but a miserable pile of woes.
Oh no! No! Miserable pile of
Oh my god. The chat knows the quote, so they are responding in kind. Richter's quote to the "it was not by my hand" part is tribute. You steal men's souls and make them their slaves. So Nightshade, tribute, it burns our souls. Like, no, seriously. I'm gonna... Have you actually played Symphony of the Night? Probably not, right, Ocean?
No, I haven't, because I'm uncultured.
Okay.
I have no.
I'm gonna send you the quote as it is. And
so it said, what is Ocean, a miserable pile of oh no's?
Here, I'm gonna send you the quote. Let's do story hour with me and you. I will play Richter and you will play Dracula.
I'm playing Dracula?
Yes, I've sent you the quotes.
Okay, I don't know how to make this voice.
It doesn't matter. This is a game from before 2000. The voice acting was horrible.
Okay.
Okay. Hold on, chat. Should I try to quote as cringily as is in the original, or should I actually try to make something out of this dialogue? Oh,
Wait.
read it in Jordan Peterson.
Okay. Yes, of course.
Oh,
Hold on a second.
I'm
I
gonna
get
be
into
Alex
it.
Jones, and you're gonna be Jordan Peterson.
No, this is cringe as fuck. Okay, cool.
Let's
do it.
This is cringe as fuck.
No, this
Okay,
is
cool.
cringe. Let's do it. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so this is Jordan Peterson. Hold on a minute. I gotta. It's a voice you have to try and get into.
Marcel X
we're
at the $10. Ooh woo. Thank you very
We're gonna
much.
do this. Yes, I love this. It's cringy. Just do the cringe. We're gonna do it all.
Oh, you want to do the cringe, huh? You want to do the cringe?
All right. So we're gonna do this script that's been put forward to us. I believe that our friend here, Cirrus the Skeptic, is going to be reading a part. I'm sort of going into Kermit.
Just you're going into Kermit, ooh
Ooh.
Ocean ooh wooing in Jordan Peterson's voice is now the best thing on
right,
this channel.
So
FBI, open up. Okay.
Right. So I guess start the script, if you will. I believe you have the first line.
Die, monster! You gay frogs don't belong in this world.
It was not by my hand that it was. Hold on a second. It was not by my hand that I'm once again given flesh. I was called here by humans who wish to pay me tribute.
Tribute? You steal men's souls and make them into your slaves!
Perhaps the same could be said of all religions.
Your words are as empty as your soul. Mankind ill needs a savior such as you.
What is a man? Fling wine glass aside. It's a miserable pile of secrets, not but enough talk. Have at you.
Perfect. Marcel X first with the $10 with an ooh and then another $10. Plunk is notwing but death and violence and the wage of a beast. A beast.
Plunk is nothing but death and violence in the wage of the beast. It's hard to talk like Jordan Peterson baby. Jordan Peterson baby is like where this is. It's hammered out is now me and Cirrus sitting here making voices. That's where we've gotten to, chat. That's where we're at. We were going to talk about the election.
We were going to talk about serious things, but now...
We are going to talk about serious things. I think that we should transfer to serious things eventually. However, we've just gotten to the point where we're reading off an anime and Jordan Peterson and Alex Jones.
An anime? No, this is an early PlayStation game.
Early PlayStation game.
Yeah. It's a PlayStation game that you should play.
It's still weeb shit. Anyway, so...
Chibi Rush says, I thought it was reading bad shit for like 5 minutes, then going to full weeboo. Keon says, oh, whoa, what's this? Notices your Alex Jones impression.
What is all the ooh-hoos on your Alex Jones? All right, so we're gonna take a step forward here. The election, though.
Are we really taking
the
a
election,
step
though? Let's talk about it briefly, at least a little bit, before we descend into imitating Jordan Peterson and Alex Jones again, because we will comment on the election. That's Jordan Peterson.
Will we?
Maybe. So, like, do you have, like, I know you're apolitical, but do you have a candidate in mind or anything like that? Are you vote blue no matter who? Or you like, where are you at?
So my ethics tell me that I would prefer going with Bernie. If I had an option and I could,
Bernie, bro, cringe. Sorry.
I would prefer to, but I also recognize that given where we are right now, it may be better for me to just suck up my ethics and say fuck it, blue no matter who. But I really don't want, as much as I want not Trump, I also really don't want creepy Uncle Biden. If that makes sense.
I mean, so back in 2016. I was that weirdo that wanted Biden to get into the race.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, because it would probably split the Hillary vote more than the Bernie vote. But I don't mind Biden. like if you have like if you put Biden and Trump on a scale.
If you put Biden and Trump on a scale, he is the lesser of two evils. Yes.
Yeah. If I'm measuring the hearts of these two people, like Biden wins.
All right, Anubis.
Right.
Jesus.
You caught the. Okay. Anyway, so
I literally just did a video talking about this.
Fair.
God damn
All right.
it.
So all right. So, but do I want Biden? Not now, not that I've seen him like I used to, but I started out the election going like, Biden will probably take it and I'll be okay with that. And then I saw him debate and I was like, shit, Trump would like run over him.
Because he would go into the debate attempting to be a good faith actor.
Right.
And the thing is that to beat Trump in a debate, hot take, to beat Trump in a debate, you do not need to go into it to be the most informed and to be the best, the person with the best intentions. You do not need to be the person who has the better platform. No, to beat Trump in a debate, you need to speak in a way that people can make memes of you dunking on Trump.
Yeah, kind of. I think that like there does need to be some meme magic needs to show up on the Democrat side, and that's the reason. That's one of the reasons why I think that Bernie could have done so well is because there was, like, you did have like you had the Trump memes and you had the Bernie memes. Clinton memes didn't exist. Like, there was just nothing.
No, they didn't.
Like,
Bernie could have
tried. She tried so hard to get some memes on her side, but there was no memes.
So the only time Biden ever had good memes was when he was with Obama. And that was just because he was like the supporter for Obama at that point. So we got like, we got the Biden was like the stupid foil for like the eloquent Obama. That was the meme at that point. The problem is, I think Bernie understands this. I truly think he does, because the whole like, do you feel the burn campaign thing from before? I think that was Bernie.
He gets it. He also had a younger.
His demographic is his staff and demographic is really young.
Yeah, that's the reason why there were memes, was that his staff was really young. When I was like, I did phone banking for Bernie in Georgia for a little while, and like everybody that was in charge was very young. We had like there were a couple of Georgia politicians that were coming up for Bernie. Anybody who's familiar with Georgia politics or at all, Vincent Fort was like super supportive. But they're like, it wasn't going to work in Georgia and everybody knew it, but we were going to fight anyway. Having a little bit of a showing was good, but it didn't, it wound up going Clinton. So, that happened. Anyway, so but Biden doesn't have that magic. Clinton didn't have that magic. Bernie does, and Marianne Williamson does. And then so does Yang. I don't know that anybody else
has the meme magic pretty hard, not gonna lie.
Yeah, he does, and he embraces it, and he's good at it. But he doesn't have the numbers. Like, I think that Progressive Wing looks at Yang and goes, "Hey, memes, but I'm not voting for you." There, a lot of them are like going towards Warren, but then the rest of the memes are in the Orb Gang.
Yeah,
and like that's not realistic. So, like, love the Orb Gang and everything, and it's funny as shit. And I love the Game of Thrones references and all that stuff. But Daenerys didn't turn out so well, guys. But I don't know. Anyway, I like. Just trying to figure it all out. As far as like who's going to debate Trump, it needs to be somebody that you can make memes out of. And I think that Warren,
they need to be memes in their favor. That's the other big thing, is that like,
because they're just gonna Photoshop Biden like really closely behind Trump. Like,
he's just gonna be like, "How's it going, buddy? I'm here to take your seat." Like that's basically what you're gonna get.
Yeah, you're gonna get that kind of stuff. The creepy Joe Biden thing is. I don't know why Trump didn't use the word creepy. Didn't he started using sleepy? He uses monikers for people. I think sleepy is Joe Biden's. Anywho, But like from a policy perspective, I guess you're not on Joe Biden's page at all, right? Or like a little bit, just more than Trump.
I think Joe Biden's maybe a little too capitalist for me. That's just like here.
Yeah,
Let's do a
I
thing.
can see.
Here.
I can see that for you.
So let's do a thing. Let's do Joe Biden on the issues. I'm sure you're familiar with use of this before. Voter's Guide on the issues.
Yeah, I've been there before. I haven't been there for this year, but just because usually, here's the thing with me in the election, is I largely don't pay much attention until after Iowa. Like I watch Iowa. I will, but for this election, it's been interesting just because it's been like, you know, the population of a small country is running for the Democratic nomination, and
Because everybody wants to fucking de-seat the guy.
right, no, it's like people. I think that what happened is that people got into their head that beating Trump in an election was going to be easy.
So I'm going to go down the list of like Biden's things that I agree with. So he says he wants to end capital punishment. He wants to end the death penalty. I agree.
Okay,
I'm anti-death penalty. Cocaine sentencing disparities. So people who get sentenced for drugs, there being a disparity between that.
Yeah.
He wants to end that disparity.
I'm like decriminalization, but
yeah, he wants to end.
that's a step in the right direction. You know.
Yeah, he wants to end the disparity. I would prefer just fucking end the criminalization completely. Like, I'm sorry. There are the drug war is not a good war. Stop fucking fighting the damn thing. Like, you want to actually strip powers
but
away
we need
from...
to we need to continue Nixon's mistakes as much as possible.
God damn it. You want to actually like take away power of the cartels, and you want to do it like you want to take away power from the cartels, and you want to do it like in like the most capitalisty way possible, just to make all the Trumpers even happy.
Yeah.
You fucking introduce those drugs into the free market. Like that strips most of the cartels of their fucking power. Like it's gone at that point.
I've heard. I don't. We could have like a giant discussion on that. I don't know if I support decriminalization to that extent of like production, but I do support decriminalization on users.
Hey, criminalization on users, definitely get rid of it. Like,
yeah,
that needs
I don't
to
know
go
about
away.
decriminalization of production though.
Biden wants to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. I don't know if that's a good idea because minimum wage. Here's the thing with minimum wage. Minimum wage has and always will be a regional issue. $15 an hour minimum wage can destabilize an economy in like rural areas and can make it to where smaller businesses can't actually compete anymore. You've eliminated small businesses.
Now
But,
Walmart owns every small town and
yeah, now every town is a fucking we spent so long trying to get rid of the
Walmart,
mill towns.
and then a series of fast food restaurants.
Yeah, that's what you'll have again.
Yeah.
However, on the other end of that, $15 minimum wage is probably definitely necessary for cities like Atlanta and New York. Living in those places with anything under that is almost fucking impossible.
It's impossible. Like,
So
it's not happening.
So yeah, I agree that minimum wage needs to be raised, but I think that tackling it from a federal perspective is really short-sighted. Like, nightmarishly short-sighted. Reparations, he says he wants to study reparations. I'm not terribly sold on reparations. I'm not, mainly because it's very hard to actually figure out who would benefit from it.
What's Biden's position on reparations?
His is study them. He doesn't actually have a formulated position yet.
Yeah,
so
I'm
I
not
don't
against that necessarily, but I don't.
So I can't actually be for or against him on this point because
who's against studying something?
He says cost of college 2 years should be free. I'm of the opinion that 4 years should be free. You should be able to get your bachelor's for free. That's my stance. I don't think that 2 years is enough. I don't
either. Like, you can't get a job. Like, associate's degree is not super distinct from a high school diploma, honestly.
No. So definitely like get it to where get us at least 4 years because most companies right now are looking for a bachelor's anyway. So please at least allow people to get that.
No, all like entrance level jobs are looking for a bachelor's and 10 years experience.
God damn it. Student debt, he says expand or fix existing debt relief programs. Expanding debt relief programs, I agree, although I think that the issue should not be trying to fix the band-aids on student debt issues. I think that the biggest issue is the fact that student debt is one of those things that you can't call bankruptcy for. You are locked into student debt for the rest of your life. that's my problem with student debt. So I think that this is like, yeah, I agree that that's a wonderful thing to do, but I think that that's a band-aid on the issue, not actually fixing the fucking
What's
issue.
his actual position again? I'm sorry.
Expand and fix existing debt relief programs. So don't introduce anything new. Just expand what we currently have,
okay.
and don't do anything to fix the underlying issue.
Student debt is the one that I keep hearing as being incredibly crippling, like that people just can't escape it. And especially with it, because you wind up, like at the end of the day, you wind up paying like, in some cases, 3 or 4 times what you loaned, because of just like how interest rates work. So,
yeah,
like it's the same with buying a house. By the way, if you on a 30-year loan with 4% interest, it gets really nasty.
And
4 is low historically. Like it's incredibly low historically. But it's if you want to get locked in at a 4% interest rate, you're still paying like significant money over what you actually loaned. If you do minimum mortgage payments and you don't do any, especially if it's like an overpayment penalty, where you can't actually knock down your principal. That's a whole conversation. But that like loans kill, and like debt can be like this.
It's a crippling thing.
And student debt is especially bad. So
he is for boosting teacher pay, which I'm for. Like I agree that teachers need to be paid infinitely more than they do now. Like it needs to be a position that people actively seek going into. Campaign finance, unlimited spending should not be allowed in politics. I'm okay with that.
That's not a position.
It's not a position itself, but there are, however, so the issue is that there I believe there used to be a time where...
Does he want to strike down Citizens United?
That I'm not certain of.
That's if you want to say that you have it, like I don't think that a presidential candidate has a position on campaign finance unless they have an opinion on Citizens United.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's like, all right, well, great. You're paying lip service. Give me a particular. I need a particular on that.
Yeah, and I don't know what the particular on that would be.
He probably hasn't given one. I know Bernie's is overthrow or overturn Citizens United, but
he is pro nuclear power. He wants to use nuclear power as a technology that would be able to fight climate change, and I agree with that position. I was
wondering if you were like a nukie.
No,
I'm a nukie.
I am pro nuclear, but I've also spoken.
Yeah, pro nuclear.
I've also spoken with people who work in the nuclear field. Not just like I know that there are some people who people might know, and I'm referring to that. I also have family who worked in the nuclear field as well. So like this is one of those things that when I see it, I'm just like, yeah, no, nuclear power is more green, and it is much more realistic than trying to just throw green power everywhere right now. Like,
right.
That's not terribly realistic, especially in dense city areas. It's really not.
But I want 30 windmills in my backyard.
And you know what? Fine. Build those windmills in your backyard.
I will do that. You know what?
Do so.
That's exactly what's going to happen. 30. No less than 30.
No less than 30?
Full-size windmills.
Okay.
Like those things you see in Illinois. I don't know why they spread them out so far. I need no less than 30 of them per acre.
On oil, he wants to end new oil and gas leases on federal land and end all offshore drilling.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm okay with that. Like, we need to be slowly filtering oil out, of our everyday use for like everything.
Here's the problem with that. Is that like what happens is when you stop producing oil, you wind up one of two things happens. Either you start importing it, or other exporters that aren't you just get more money.
They get to dominate those markets.
Right. So it's like, okay, America's not going to be playing the oil game.
Now everybody else is just going to be playing the oil game.
Yeah, exactly. So the way to actually combat on this issue. I mean, sure, saying you can't drill here is part of the solution, and that's great and all. But it's not going to stop other sovereign powers from being like, we will drill more. So you have to couple that with throwing shitloads of funding into technology advancement that's going to put an end to this crap. Like, we need to have alternative fuels.
No, I think that de-incentivizing big business or investing strictly in oil, because right now investing in oil is just safe. Like, the world runs on it. So if you're a big business, you are, and this is one of the issues with like trying to argue that everything is solved by the free market. The free market's going
to be like, no, we're going to use oil until everything blows up.
Yeah, the free market sat on oil and said, this works really well, guys. Let's stay here forever. No.
Right.
So I do think that we need to find some way to incentivize looking for ulterior power, because right now there's the only incentive is climate change and like ethical stances on green power. But guess what? You can't fucking convince businesses with ethics. You can't.
Someone's bringing up hydrogen. Problem with hydrogen, it's good for like fuel cells. If you wanted to build a car on it or something like that, that might be a good fuel for the future. But it takes energy to make. So it's a good transportation fuel. It's not a very good power plant fuel. Mm-hmm. So, and one of the problems with electric cars, first is lithium ion, which in order to get that shit is incredibly destructive. And the mines get abandoned and they wind up polluting all the water around them, and shit sucks.
Hey, my phone has a lithium ion battery, sir, and it is very offended.
I bet it is. So, but the next part of that is, if you're going to be putting power in your lithium ion battery, and especially in a vehicle, that's going to take a lot of fucking power. Where does that power come from? In Georgia, it's natural gas and coal. Yeah. So you're just taking all that green energy that you're driving around in your Tesla. Every wheel turn of that is coal. It's coal burning. So
two things real quick. One, I missed a donation earlier from Zalrock. I want to get that real quick before I forget. It was $5, and it's bold of you to assume that Cirrus is ever on time. Thanks. Also, Tony Designs in the chat has a good point here. As new countries leave their third world status, their carbon emissions temporarily go up as infrastructure is built, usually as they have their industrial revolution.
Right, and then it curves back down.
And then they curve back down steeply as things like nuclear and shit like that, I'm imagining, are developed. I do think that the point that was brought up earlier of we ran fine without oil before is a really bad point, and I do think that Tony made a good point with, well, we ran fine without cell phones and computers. You first. I'm not trying to support like fighting in the chat, but to the point where we ran fine without oil before, that is true. However, the difference being is that before we did not have infrastructure built around it. Now we do. Prior economies did not have their infrastructures built around oil, and so they ran without it. But now we do have an infrastructure and economy that's built around having an energy source. Currently, it's oil. We need to move it to something other than oil. This is true, and steps need to be taken in order to do that. But an argument saying that, oh, we worked fine without it, well, yeah, we worked fine without computers once as well, and I would like to maintain having my job, which is currently...
Oh, I'm getting rid of my computer right now.
Your Ocean goes full green today. Done. No. So, what I will say is I think we actually need to have... we need to go find Superman and use him to power the economy for the next bit. In fact, actually, I believe there's actually a story in DC Comics where they did that. They just fucking captured Superman and used him to power America. And just... America went green by enslaving soups. Oof. Galactic says that we lost Ocean, but
I've decided to use electricity again.
Okay.
So one of the things that I think, like, this is the whole thing that I talked about with coal, by the way, is one of the reasons why I'm also pro-nuke. So because I think that nuclear power is like a huge solution, as long as you have a disposal strategy that's safe. Cool. But there is like this like visceral reaction to nuclear, and I think it's because of things like Chernobyl and Fukushima. So, but you need to get your fucking safety down. And in all the years of nuclear power plants, we've had these are the disasters that we've had. One was caused by a gigantic fucking tsunami, and the other was caused by complete irresponsibility of the people working there. So as long as you don't have like
but
those
Ocean,
situations,
that should never happen. You know that Allah actually put the mountains in place as pegs in order to stop land shakes. Sorry, I'm just using reality to debunk the Quran real quick.
So but bottom line, I'm pro nuke. I'm also pro using hydro, wind, solar, and all that jazz. Although solar does have issues.
Definitely use a shotgun approach. Use nuclear where applicable, use wind where applicable, and
use wave where applicable.
And where applicable, use coal. If you are in the if you're in the agricultural industry, for instance, there is nothing currently set up that will allow agriculture to continue as it is without using coal without using fossil fuels, at least as a primary energy source. There's nothing set up for that yet. Slowly transition, but don't.
What's the trend? What do you mean?
So
are you just saying that rural areas usually have coal plants, or are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about the business of agriculture.
Yeah,
the machines that actually
use coal. Okay.
Those areas are not going to have an option but to use that.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense.
They're not going to have an ability to do otherwise. But you know what? If you don't have an ability to do otherwise, that's fine. But the places that can do otherwise should. Also, Casper just sent $2. Islam back the fuck off. Back the fuck off.
That's what back the fuck off is. So, okay, got it. Someone's pointing out to you what my visceral reaction was. The coal is literally the dirtiest of all fossil fuels. Okay, it's but transition works if you are able to eliminate coal plants and replace them with, say, nuclear or a combination of nuclear, wind, solar, hydro, and wave, or whatever else that you want to use. Great,
one of the problems
that it's a gradual process, and you're going to be fighting against powers that be because you have to replace infrastructure in order to do that. You're not talking about adding infrastructure, you're talking about replacing, because you have to get rid of coal plants in order to do that. So you're going to be fighting against people that have a vested interest in keeping coal plants, because their economic livelihood is based on coal mining and coal power plants. So it's a challenge, and if a president is up to it, to get back to the election, then yeah, great. But Biden is pro-nuclear, right? He thinks that he can expand nuclear and do that?
He's pro-nuke.
Yeah, okay. Cirrus is eating.
Well, the chat
He's
can't
eating
see
food.
that. The chat can't see that at all. Nope.
Oh.
I'm hiding
Cirrus
behind
is eating. I'm letting you guys know.
You're hiding behind Ganondorf now.
Am I? Oh.
Yep.
Well, shit.
The hosts of the show, they have ascended. But also Biden is pro taxing carbon emissions. Now here's the thing that I'm divided on.
I don't like that.
I'm divided on it.
Yeah. Okay.
So on the one hand, economists do show that carbon tax is one of the most efficient ways to get businesses to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. And I'm okay with it in that regard. However, I also recognize that there are people who are really fucking greedy and would try to move that carbon emission tax. There we go. Boom. There are people that will attempt to use that in order to tax people that are in the lowest bracket that are just trying to use their car to get to work. So, for instance, if your car is in disrepair, punishing you for having a car that's in disrepair. Which, oh, by the way, we already fucking do. That's a thing we already fucking do, and I don't like it.
Catalytic converters?
Well, if the converter doesn't work, then yeah, you actually
you wind up getting penalized significantly.
You get penalized
or
a
you
lot.
Can't drive your car.
and they are one of the most expensive pieces of the car to replace.
Yeah, that's what I found out when I was.
Yeah.
Because I had a 4Runner with a bad catalytic converter, and if I wanted to get it on the road, it was like a $2,500 at least replacement.
Mm-hmm.
And
at that point, you can get a good mid-range vehicle.
Yeah, I was like, that's worth, the car itself is worth twice that. So, oh boy.
Yeah. So while I do agree that taxing bigger businesses on carbon emissions, I'm inclined to agree with economists on that. My problem, however, comes down to the fact that we have historically used carbon tax emissions on people who they largely don't apply to in the same way.
Yeah.
Like, that's my issue. And I live now in one of those regions where I personally who have to take this tax. And don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with taxes as a concept. I just think there are some taxes that are maybe unnecessary. Like this one.
So, as far as like, if it's effective at getting down total carbon emissions, then great. My problem with it is that it winds up with people who, it winds up giving a business advantage to people that can afford to pay for carbon credits. So you wind up just like perpetuating an advantage on larger corporations against people that are trying to, that aren't a large corporation. So, you know, and then
their businesses
it doesn't
just absorb the cost.
Right. It'll just be like, oh, well, this is part of our overhead now. And that's whatever, if there's a way to combat that and lower carbon emissions, then that's going to be what I'm more in favor of. However, in the short term, if you can show me that it's like that it ultimately brings the emissions down, then fantastic. Yeah, it might be a good short-term solution until we start working out something else.
Problem is that there are people that will see short-term solutions, and in seeing those short-term solutions will say, oh, we're doing stuff about it, and then ignore the problem.
And then ignore the problem. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So now that we've gone into an in-depth look at environmentalism, because I think we went from power plants to another environmentalist topic.
Because I'm actually going down the list.
Right. So what's the next one?
The next one is actually agriculture as well. Pay farmers. So here's actually one of the things that Biden thinks you should do. Farmers that do not have climate-friendly alternatives, he wants to actually pay those farmers to adopt those alternatives.
Pay farmers. Oh.
Yeah, pay farmers to adopt climate-friendly practices.
Okay.
Like, I'm okay with that. My
like a stipend?
Or basically a
grant, basically.
And Bernie Sanders is also okay with that. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, they both agree with that. Yang, on the other hand, does not agree with that, strangely.
Oh?
Yang agrees with taxing carbon emissions and stuff, but he does not agree with making sure that farmers can get paid for adopting climate-friendly practices. I think he's banking so hard on his $1,000 for everybody, he thinks that's going to solve all the fucking problems. It's not. But, you know, who am I? Who am I to question the Lord of the Men?
I just found someone who did a... Oh my god. Look in fan art.
I'm getting there. There's a bunch of stuff I have to put in.
There's the ocean avatar going, WTF is this weeb shit.
Oop, hold on. Doot, and... I just saw the Jordan Peterson one in there. And then, of course, the what the fuck is this weeb shit. That's...
The Jordan Peterson one's funny. There's another one it looks like with me saying again to something. What is that, a free...
Okay. So.
Oh, face beard. Free beard. My beard is like existing elsewhere.
All right, let's get the fan art in now that I've got it all in my folder here. First one, we have this one from
beautiful.
Galactic Halo, which is the free beard one. Your beard looks like a squid.
It's off. Exactly. I thought it looked like it looks like that red creature that Bugs Bunny winds up running down hallways.
Yes,
with.
it does.
Alternatively,
it
has a
looks,
name, but I don't know what it is.
alternatively, it looks like the sheriff from the Beetlejuice cartoon. We also have a work in progress that was commissioned by Bumblebee. Zalrock Chaos put in trans rights for everybody there. If you don't agree with trans rights, you can definitely unsub. That's fine. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Then we have Jordan Peterson versus Alex Jones, The Duel. That can go in there. Then, finally... Oh, that needs to go above there. I can't see Galactic Halo's face. And then finally, we have Ocean's response to everything tonight. What the fuck is this weeb shit?
What the fuck is this weeb shit?
Remember, Ocean, God is a yandere.
That's some weeb shit. I'm just gonna say it.
Somebody tried to make the argument that God was tsundere in the stream that I came to that conclusion in, and my argument against that was basically, okay, here's the problem though. Here's the tsundere way of dealing with attraction. It's not like I liked you or anything, but baka. Whereas the yandere version of that is, if you love anybody else, I'll burn everyone to the ground and flood the world.
Everyone
Oh wait,
everyone you know and love.
That's exactly what Yahweh did. So, yeah, we're going with yandere.
There's a flood involved in there somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, that just reminded me. The token yandere that everybody appeals to is Yuno. She is from an anime called Miraniki, and in Miraniki, the goal was to become god of the universe and reshape it in your image. I think Yuno won. I think that's exactly what happened. I think the evidence of it is plain. I'm going to have to get so many clips from that anime for that video.
What the fuck is this weeb shit?
But back on to creepy Uncle Biden.
Yeah, Uncle Biden. We're talking about Uncle Biden. Eventually, we're going to do this with all of the candidates. Is that what's going to happen? So, like, I think we're just looking at how fucking moderate Uncle Biden is. As, like, run through the rest of it, and let's see if we can find another conversation to get our wheels spinning on for another 15 minutes.
So on assault weapons, he wants to support a voluntary buyback program, where people can hand whatever weapons they do not wish to keep anymore back to the government.
Okay.
I like that it's voluntary, as long as it's not voluntary. That's the trick there.
As long as it's not Beto O'Rourke doing it, right?
Yeah, like, Beto, I'm coming for your guns. Like, the statistics show that it's like that. The statistics show that you're not going to get rid of violence by doing that.
So here's my thing with Beto O'Rourke right now. First, I think he's a Starbucks cup. Second, I think that his thing that is saying that, we're going to come for your guns and all that shit. All that does is validate the NRA's years of trying to do a conspiracy theory of saying, oh, look, the Democrats are gun grabbers. You know,
all you've done is you've created the monster.
Beto just went up and said, I want to legitimize the NRA and become a mouthpiece for them right now. That's all he fucking did.
You know what else he did though? When he said that he wanted to specifically tax churches that did not want to, have you heard about this? Churches that don't want to do gay marriage. Yes. Now, like
make it so that revokes. It's like, oh, we're gonna go into specific.
Yeah, and like at that point,
now with that,
at that point, I'm just like, so while I agree with what you're trying to do, I really do. Like the gun thing, you're trying to lower violence in America.
I understand what he wants.
Yeah, like your intention is understandable. However, here's what you're actually doing. You're actually literally just acting like a fucking right-wing plant now.
Right.
You're validating every fucking fear that they've said all lefties have. And worst part is, I have some friends who agree with his stances on all of that. And I'm just like, do you agree with the specific thing he's doing regardless of consequence, or do you agree with the sentiment? Because I agree with the sentiment behind all of that, but the actual effect, bad. Also, I'm just going to go ahead and say it right now. If you are a far leftist, right, and you think that gun control, like Beto is attempting to do, is a good idea, good luck, because a proletariat revolution doesn't happen without weapons. I'm just going to drop that little dime there for everybody.
I think Vosh has said that before, and I was just like,
You're just like, I have a very hard time arguing with that point. And not to mention, just in general, there are situations where having a weapon to defend yourself is just a good idea. Like, I live out here in the fucking country, right? Like,
we're a couple of Georgians talking about guns right now.
Yes.
So that's what's really going on here, guys. Anybody that vehemently disagrees with everything that we're saying, Suris and I are a couple of fucking hicks when it comes right the fuck down to it. Let's be fucking fair. And we're gonna have these opinions on guns because we grew up with them. We're familiar with them. We know the hobby.
I have riflery awards, for fuck's sake. I'm a marksman.
Right. So. My ultimate problem with Beto's position, even let's say that it could be effective or whatever the fuck. I have disagreements with that aspect too. But it's like the I agree with you trying to do thing and extending beyond the right-wing plant element of it, that it's like now you seem like that kind of thing. And extending beyond the fact that, the most action that he seems to have done is standing on counters somewhere. He is advocating for authoritarian policies now.
Yeah.
That's where we're at with Beto O'Rourke.
Which means
he's advocating twice for authoritarian policies.
Which means even if he is
Nope.
Thoroughly on the left, he's on the upper left-hand quadrant.
He's a tanky.
And I don't like those people.
He is showing tanky signs, and I'm just like, no, sir, thank you very much. I already didn't like him because I thought that he looked like too fake. You know what I mean? Like, he had that air about him of just being like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. He seems like he's a yuppie that has, tripped and fell his way into politics because he happened to be running against Ted Cruz at the time.
And if you're running against the Zodiac Killer, you might as well.
Right. It's like, who is
allegedly.
It's very similar to running against Trump, except it's Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is a caricature of evangelical right. So when you're the guy running against him and you have national attention on you, it's fairly easy to look good by comparison. But when you're in a field that also includes Elizabeth Warren, and Joe Biden, and these people that are really politically accomplished across the board, and then there's Beto O'Rourke saying, we're coming for your guns and we're going to start taxing the churches if they don't believe the right things.
You've literally just taken every potential person who does not... You've essentially, when you've done that, you've initiated a purity test. And everyone who is even moderately on the right knows they will fail your purity test, and they don't want to be part of you anymore.
Right, they're just like, fuck you.
No, that's bad.
And here's the thing, is that I'm, when it comes to gun rights, I wind up being classified pretty close to the right. So pretty close. I'm on the right when it comes to guns. But people that I know that are on the right with respect to guns, including myself, do support universal background checks, do support safety tests. These things are very, very common for support on the right when it comes to gun legislation and gun reform. There is huge support for gun reform. It just needs to be, and there's support for effective gun reform.
Use your brain when you do it.
And don't perpetuate the conspiracy that is they're coming from your guns. Because as soon as you do that, Trump's going to win. If it's Beto versus Trump right now, I'm telling you straight up, conspiracy theory runs amok. Gun grabber narrative.
Canadian Emperor Jackson says, do you know any leftists who supports abortion? I know people who don't support abortion who would consider themselves on the left, but if you're talking leftists, like people who are actually like pro community, not or pro collectivism, not pro individualism.
They tend to be pretty radically pro-choice.
They're usually very, very pro-choice at that point.
Unless they're a Catholic.
Yeah, but it's very hard to find it's rare to find somebody who's like really like that far left and also Catholic.
Yeah.
That's usually pretty hard, because if you're here's the thing I've noticed. Most like really anti-authoritarians who are actually anti-authoritarian, not just LARP it, usually end up not being Christian. Because it's
Right.
if you're I'm sorry. This is another one of those hot take things, but please take this with not a grain of salt. I actually mean this very, very wholeheartedly. If you are a Christian and you call yourself anti-authoritarian, you're lying. You're actually lying. You may not realize you're spouting a falsehood. Lying requires intent. I don't think I take it back that you're lying, but I do think
as soon as I heard you, is oh shit. Like,
I do think that you are spouting a falsehood, because Christianity, by its nature, is authoritarian. It literally has.
It's monarchy.
Go against the orders of Yahweh, and what happens to you? You burn to death.
You go to the gulag. I mean, hell.
Forever.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. If you are a Christian and you think you're anti-authoritarian, you're probably not. Because the only way you could be anti-authoritarian is by making a special pleading place for Yahweh.
So anyway, Beto sucks. He's authoritarian. And I don't see any way out of that criticism for him, unless he like seriously just changes everything. But it's cool that he says Spanish phrases and says fuck sometimes, I guess. That'll get some votes.
Speaking of about
I'm sorry if there's any Beto fans in the chat.
we just crapped on you.
Right. Sorry guys, but he's authoritarian. He's probably the worst candidate on the stage.
Biden is in favor of background checks. He's in favor of universal background checks.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm okay with universal background checks. What I'm not okay with are red flag laws. I think red flag laws are stupid. Do you?
Well, I don't know enough about how they work in order to agree with you or disagree with you.
Here's the thing about red flag laws.
If let's I'm going to give you best case scenario that they're big brothery as fuck.
Okay.
So the issue is that with red flag laws, I don't know how often they actually prevent something, mainly because there's no way to verify that.
I think pre-crime is just an awful
idea.
Yeah. Like
But when it comes to mass shootings, though, if there's a way to prevent that stuff, or a way to like enact policy that lessens the chances of it and that kind of stuff, I'm going to be right behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and I want to know what that policy is. I want to know how it works.
Well, here's the thing.
It's red flag laws. I don't know what their effectiveness is in response to that.
I can tell you what it's going to be, because I actually know the numbers on this.
Oh no. Of course. Okay, cool. Go for it.
What's this? Of course.
Break it down for me.
Okay, so
I don't know if I support red flag laws.
So red flag laws, by their nature, would target people who have things like various mental illnesses. That's usually like the first trigger mechanism that a red flag will red flag.
I don't think that people with diagnosed depression should be able to get a handgun.
Okay, so
I just don't if you've been institutionalized for depression.
Mm-hmm.
No, you should not have a handgun. Absolutely not.
Okay, institutionalized for it, or just
that's the bar here. I don't know,
Also, Canadian Fear says, I feel like if the left supported gun rights, people would want to be more part of the left. Before I get into my point here, I'm left and I support gun rights. I'm sorry. I also find it really weird. Like
I feel like I'm moderate, but I'm mostly a lot of issues like universal health care. I'm like super left. But when it comes to guns, I start to disagree with the left a lot.
But then you realize that actually this is going to sound kind of no true Scotsman-y, but
I'll wind up agreeing with Vosh or something like that.
But a lot of the anti-gun rhetoric that comes out of the left is directly against like a lot of left values, unless they're fucking tankies, in which case, yeah, they're on the left, much in the same way that a fucking sedevacantist is, yes, Catholic. But I'm not sure if you know what a sedevacantist is.
Anyway, you were trying to defend, like, so red flags. Because like
the problem that I have with red flags is that the primary people that get hit by red flag laws are people that have various mental illnesses. The actual statistics on mass shootings, I went over this in a gun video I did on Steven Crowder. The actual statistics on gun violence in America, mass shootings is the thing we're talking about. So let's go into the stats on that. 3 to 5%. It is only 3 to 5% of mass shootings of any variety where the shooter has actually been diagnosed or there was a history of anything even related to mental illness. Most shootings happen from people who have horrible intentions.
Right. So talking about mass shootings, sure, but when you're talking about, like, okay, here's the reason why I'm gonna disagree with you hard on this. With as far as like depression and saying no, you can't have a handgun. The other statistic about gun deaths is suicide. That's where a lot of gun deaths come from. I think even most. And on top of that, most of those deaths are handgun related.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to red flag laws around, especially around depression and institutionalization, absolutely not. There should be no right to pick up a handgun after that.
I still can't say I agree because there's no way to tell by a metric that this gun is specifically being used in that way.
Well, yeah, but that's going to be with any purchase. So, like, if, can you say?
I feel like that would.
You're arguing for unfettered access, right?
I'm not arguing for unfettered access. I'm still okay with background.
Well, the argument that you just put forward would, by consequence, have unfettered access.
Would it?
I don't think that you could put. Well, yeah, because you don't. When someone purchases a gun, you don't know it's going to be used in a crime.
Well, you don't know it's going to be used in a crime, but I am more okay with, say, if somebody has a criminal history, preventing them from having access to gun. That's by its very nature not unfettered access.
Okay, so some red flags with the criminal history you're fine with. The thing is, have you seen? I think you need to look at statistics about gun deaths generally. I think that you might change your mind about institutionalization and depression and gun access if you see the sheer numbers there. Because I think most gun deaths are suicide and handgun related.
Well, I know most gun deaths are handgun related. That one I know is true, because freaking Ben Shapiro, his argument against gun reform is always that, well, that rifles.
No one's going after handguns. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, his thing is like, rifles are only responsible for X% of something. I'm like, yeah, but if you actually take like all guns into account, they are responsible for more deaths in the U.S. than any other like type of weaponry. But let me look up the statistic real quick. So it is how many gun deaths are suicide, correct?
Yeah.
Let's see, gun deaths by state. About 72% of all murders across the United States are from guns. That one we already knew.
Yeah, and I'd say that like the vast majority of those are handguns.
Let's see here. This one's just giving me generalized statistics.
Yeah, hold on a
it's
second.
Not giving me the suicide ones. Canadian Führer, Emperor Jackson. So the thing with Shapiro is he's not a fool. He's actually very smart. The thing that Shapiro does is he recognizes that his audience will not fact-check him. It's the same thing with Trump. Trump LARPs the idiot pretty fucking well, but Trump surrounds himself with people that more than likely encourage him to LARP the idiot. Is he the smartest guy in the room? Probably never. But he's also a businessman. And if you've ever read any books that are about like building yourself into a businessman of any kind.
Here we go.
Give me one
There's
second
a-
to finish this point.
Okay, go for it. Yep.
If you've ever read any books that are about building yourself into a businessman of any kind, one of the rules that you are taught is to not be the smartest person in the room. Make sure you surround your. They basically say if you're the smartest person in the room, leave. Find a room where you are not the smartest person and benefit from the wisdom of everybody around you. This is why you get so many people who can manage to be good at business, but also be absolute fucking idiots. Also, if he compares human life to furniture, that's fine. I'm okay with him doing that. Because if he wants to compare human life to furniture, then I'll just go, then you should be pretty pro-abortion at that point, because it's just like getting rid of a chair, right? Okay, continue, Ocean.
All right, stats. 2017, estimated number of 40,000 firearm-related deaths across the nation in USA. Of which almost 24,000 are suicide.
Okay, so more than 50%
Yeah.
are suicide at that point. Okay.
Right. And when it's suicide with a gun, it's gonna be handgun. I think it's the saying is 7 out of 12 are suicide.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So here's one of my problems with that, though. At that point, if you're trying to prevent suicide, I think you still end up in the same situation where your intent is pure. I agree with you, but
it makes it really easy.
But wouldn't
handgun is like
handgun is really easy, but doesn't your argument trigger warning for the chat? We're about to talk. We've been talking about it, but we're also about to talk. We're going to get a little darker. My suicide attempt, granted, it was done with a rope. It's what I had on hand. Most suicide attempts are done by what is on hand.
Right.
I feel as though that would necessitate then trying to get rid of anything somebody could potentially commit suicide with.
So, okay.
Like, I know that that's kind of slippery slopey.
It's that I see what your point is. However, I'm going to disagree with the slope. I'm going to get into this is a conversation I don't know if I definitely want to jump into. So we're going to talk about logistics of this shit.
Sure.
But ease of success, rope versus gun.
Mm-hmm.
Gun's going to win.
Yeah, gun.
It is.
Definitely.
It is much easier to accidentally. Like there's with a lot of with a lot of ways that people attempt suicide. There is a time in which somebody can reverse a decision when it comes to like taking pills or something like that. You know, if a medic gets there in time and something like that, you can solve the problem and all that shit. And then you can get into institutionalization, and we can talk. There's another conversation about how effective that is. What with guns, that's not there. That like way to solve the problem in process or rush to a hospital and that kind of thing. It's just like that's the distinguishing factor that I see, you know, is that there's that reverse decision process just isn't available.
Just once you pull the trigger, that's it. Like it's done.
Most of the time,
and I get that. My one of
far more often than a lot of other ways.
Two that come to mind.
There's
There's probably more than that. Two that come to mind of my family members have committed suicide, and both of them have been by gun. One of which actually failed. And in the case of failing suicide by gun, there's a higher chance of you just being in a vegetative state and no longer being functional. Right. Where at that point, you didn't succeed, but you still kind of succeeded.
So with all that in mind, I think that it's justifiable to say, this depression, and especially institutionalization due to depression, should be a red flag.
No, and I agree with that. However, now that leads us into another part of the conversation that gets really awkward.
Right.
Like, incredibly awkward. Are you pro-assisted suicide?
Yes.
Okay. Under what conditions?
It's so...
Because you recognize that this is the logical next step of that conversation.
Yeah, it is the logical next step of that conversation. It's distinct from gun control, and I think that I've made the point on red flag laws.
Yeah.
But, that is something that I'm not the person who's going to be able to make those decisions. I do think that it should be an option, though, especially for people that have terminal illnesses.
Like for instance, I had a great grandfather who He was, granted, this gets into a conversation about toxic masculinity as well, but he was told for his entire life that he needed to be the provider, and if he was not being the provider for the household, then he was a failure. That was it. Done. So when he got cancer, very, very badly, and it became to the point where it was just straight up inoperable, and it started to cripple him. Like he was stuck in bed eating soup, and that was like that was his day. That's it. He ultimately ended up committing suicide, and I think that in that situation, I would not have been able to argue against it. As bad as it is, his reasoning, and this gets into a lot of the societal issues, was that he couldn't be a provider anymore, and his quality of life, it was non-existent. His life was waking up, being unable to communicate with people. The cancer he had was lung cancer, so like everything.
Right, I think that like we're in agreement on this. So I don't know where all the boundaries need to be on that. Somebody asked in the chat about my point on suicide, whether or not we can turn that around to violent crimes. Yeah, violent crimes should be red flags as well. Mm-hmm. Like you shouldn't. If you've committed a violent crime, the reason why universal background checks are useful is because that means that across state lines you can detect this stuff. That if you have a history of violent crime, you shouldn't have access to a gun. If you have a history of institutionalization with respect to depression, you shouldn't have access to a gun. That are two things on a possibly long list of reasons why you should have red flags, or of red flags that should be on that list. I'm not saying that because of my position on depression and with the risks pertaining to suicide that I'm not in favor of any other thing being on this list. No. Violent crime, absolutely one of those things that should be on there. And so that's, the universal background checks, the support for universal background checks is toothless if you don't have some kind of red flag system. So, I mean, like, I can agree that there's like a, big brother element of what's going on there, but, this is, I think there's justifiable cause here to have that kind of list. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. There's a point being made in the chat. The first one is from Casper. Both the points are from Casper.
Okay.
And the first one is articulating my point pretty well. If you're pro euthanasia, you can't really tell people that they can't own guns because they might put themselves out. It's basically going.
There's a distinction it's there.
Creating,
I think, though.
It's kind of creating a special. You're actually kind of special pleading there, though, because at that point
I think that there should be guns are not a safe option for committing suicide. It's just not.
Whereas a lethal injection of some kind is a safe
whatever
option.
Like if you want to have a Kevorkian machine system, then good, but guns are not that option. It's not a safe system for that.
True, but I think that the point being, if you're arguing for gun laws and your reasoning for that is the
should you go through
prevention.
A process for assisted suicide? Because you don't do that with a gun. Is there a legal process you should go through for assisted suicide? I think there should be.
You think
there should be a justification.
So you think that somebody?
There.
You think that
I don't know what the regulation needs to be.
So here's my question to you then. At that point, because we're in a can of worms topic, so we might as well just.
Yeah.
I think we're adult enough to wade. I think we're adult enough to wade through it. At least I hope so. Ocean, are you an adult?
Like, I'm trying.
Need an adult.
Not actually, but
fuck
so we're getting into a lot of things that I just generally don't talk about, especially on air. So but this is one of those. We're definitely in the can of worms as it is. So
and you know what? Honestly, if this is what our Hammered Out episode ends up being, I'm fine with that.
Let me clarify my position for assisted suicide just before.
Okay, because I'm honest. I'm honestly this close to being like, Ocean, I'm your friend, but I'm about to put your feet to the fire in a way that's going to be largely uncomfortable.
Okay, yeah.
But go ahead, clarify your position.
I can see an argument for regulation on that simply because, I'm kind of weird about the idea of just unfettered making an independent decision, not calling family, not having a conversation about it. There should be some kind of check somewhere about it, whether or not this is a good decision. So I don't know what all that is. I don't know exactly how to approach that at all because I see too many fucking problems that could potentially arise from it. But when it like the comparison between that and the gun argument, a gun is not a safe and effective way to do that. It's just like, you know, a particularly dangerous and messy way. Like that's just where that is. Like a gun should be a self-protection device, not a suicide system, not an assisted suicide device.
True, but here comes the two biggest issues with your position, though.
Okay, go for it.
One, what are you going to do to prevent them from illegally procuring guns? Because that's a thing people can do. Like you've just added power to the black market. You've just added that somebody who potentially wants to kill themselves.
The black market's going to exist regardless. It just doesn't. It doesn't mean that it has to be easy.
Wait, the black market's going to exist regardless. So you're pro the war on drugs then?
No.
Okay.
No.
But the black market's going to exist. The black market's going to exist regardless, Ocean.
We shouldn't be punished. Like that gets into a thing about whether or not drug use is punishable or should be punishable, and that's just not like owning. Like access to a weapon is different than like the criminalization of using drugs. I think that there's a distinction there. I don't think that that's a crossway that you can make.
I think that it is a crossway, though. It's one that I'm going to abandon for now because there's a secondary point that I wanted to get into.
We can get into the
secondary point.
There, but I don't.
The secondary, yeah, we would mostly be treading pedantry at that point.
Right.
The secondary point that I wanted to make is who other than yourself? Like,
right.
Granted,
this is the problem that I have with my own position.
Yeah, this is. I recognize that, like, if I were to want to do it today, like, granted, I have suicidal tendencies still. There are times where I sit there and think about it, and like, the thoughts don't go away for hours. They're there. This is a thing that I wrestle with every day, so I'm not trying to speak to this from a place of like unfeelingness. But I feel as though to put a system in place where other people, especially in a legal sense, must be there for you to have approved euthanasia. That seems very odd to me, because at that point you're basically saying that somebody who you're doing the same thing for somebody taking their own life, which is a bad thing. It is a tragedy. We both agree with that. It's not something that people should do, but you're making the same argument for euthanasia that people make when they're anti-abortion, where there should be a system in place.
Because I'm seeing that you're making a my body, my choice kind of situation. How about so let me propose a regulation that would probably work.
Okay.
So because I think that the main problem with this is going to be that you get a impulsive moment, and then but that would otherwise outside of that impulsive moment be not the decision they would make. And I think that something like a 2-week cool down period or something like that for application, regardless of whatever reason. Let's say that reason is not something that can be rejected, but that there does need to be a cool down period to make sure that you are actually making the decision that you want to make. If you're not going to be changing your mind.
If there's
that's an example of a regulation that I think
is a regulation
doesn't actually remove.
That's a regulation that I think I would be okay with, having a cool down period so that somebody in the middle of like a period of psychosis, as an example, cannot simply just go, okay, it's time. It's time to go. And by having a legal route that people can pursue as opposed to one where they have to do it at home or with a gun, I think that's going to do a lot more to stop gun-related suicide deaths than trying to add mental illness as a red flag law.
So this is also one of the things that people talk about assisted suicide, and then it comes packaged with like all these things, like of, all right, so now you're supporting impulsive activity with respect to that. That's not my position. I think that, that's one example of something that could be a solution. I don't know if that needs to be the solution, right? But I think that that's something that we both agree here is something that is reasonable, that identifies what the problem is with the idea of just unfettered. So, and on top of that, backs up the idea of unfettered access to guns with relation to the same issue.
It also allows the families of the person who feels like that's the tack that they need to take. It allows the families of that to actually come to terms while the person is around, as opposed
a goodbye
to
period and all that shit.
Yeah, it allows them to actually get closure, because there's the thing. There's a point in the chat being made about people consider suicide a victimless crime, and I disagree with that point. I think there are victims.
Completely.
There's
Absolutely.
the crime itself is that, one, somebody felt like they were put in a position where they needed to do that in the first place. Obviously, something has been taken place, and then on top of that, once you've eliminated yourself as a victim, if that is the case, then your family around you are also made to suffer as a result. I recognize that using how the family is going to feel is largely an abuse tactic, though. So trying to say, well, how would your parents feel? How would X feel?
Yeah.
Well, like if I'm in a situation where
I'm just looking at like
if I'm in a
the
situation,
utilitarian nature of it and that kind of shit. So.
Yeah. So like I'm in a position where I have attempted. I still have the tool that I attempted with, mainly as a reminder not to fucking do it again. But I'm in that situation. I was in a low point of my life. However, if I can maybe dial this back into something that's positive, I think the best course of action, aside from obviously allowing like things like a cooldown period, while also allowing euthanasia for people who feel they need it, because there are people in chronic pain where, honestly, for them, they just might go, I just want it to stop. I really, truly want it to stop. And yes, thank you for providing the suicide prevention line link, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think really one of the other things that needs to be taken care of is figuring out why this happens in many cases. Obviously, suicide happens for a lot of people due to things like chronic pain. But that is not all cases, and I'd argue definitely not most cases. For mine, I was in a very bad economic state. And I had also gone through a breakup recently, and I was in a breakup and in an abusive relationship at the same time. Wonderful things that happen when you're polyamorous. You can have both at the same time, and it fucking sucks. Mm-hmm. But because of that, because of the nature of that situation, the only thing I wanted was a way out. And I'm glad that I didn't. I'm glad that I failed. But at the same time, what could have been done to stop that? Well, certainly there's nothing that could have been done to stop the relationship issue. That's just being human and social. But the economic status of things, that could have been fixed. There are ways to do it. Because I lost my job due to mental illness. I had depression and anxiety, and the anxiety caused me to actually have attacks on the job when I was the only worker present that would cripple me for sometimes upwards of an hour, where I could barely function. Like, there's probably camera footage of me in the fetal position, like, unable to function. If, some...
At work.
At work. This is shit that happened on the job where cameras did see it. So, like, alleviating at least the economic problem, that would have been a huge step into preventing me from feeling like that was the only option available to me. Making me feel like I was at least not financially trapped. I was only trapped due to relationship stuff, and that stuff, it goes away with time. Sometimes your economic status can't. It just won't.
Right.
So,
and I think we're in 100% agreement here that solving problems like that are going to help with those kind of situations. I think that I'm largely, as far as like the positions that I've defended, though, I'm comfortable with where I'm standing on them, as far as like the case that I've made, with respect to red flags on these specific issues. I agree about different solutions that need to be had, but where, like, I'm kind of wondering where we are in that conversation there as well. So I don't know, because I think that we're at a place of agreement on this. We could probably move on.
So well, hold on. But... Here's the first thing. Do you know that we've mentioned mainly essentially what comes down to background checks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whereas a red flag law, I just looked up for clarity's sake, red flag laws are gun control laws that permits police and family to petition a state court in order to remove firearms from a person who may present a danger.
All right, so that's a different definition than what we've been running with over the course of this conversation.
Yes,
so,
and I think that any force, like, should family be allowed to remove firearms from you?
Probably not.
Well,
maybe. I don't know.
So I'm of the opinion that families should be allowed to in some cases. Some
Depends on the
cases.
family, man.
It does. It does. Like
we
if you,
opened up this conversation talking about how shitty families can be. So
true.
like,
So like if you're like
you know,
there's it's hard to say like should they legally be allowed to take it, I guess, because at that point it's the family. If a family thinks that you're going to be a danger to yourself, so they want to remove a gun, then there's best of intentions and all that fun stuff. But what happens if we have the family that are removing the gun so that they can abuse you without you having the ability to defend yourself? Like, let's say you're in that situation where you can't go anywhere, and the only thing that's preventing your father from beating you, as an example, is the fact that he knows that you're armed. So when he goes into your room, that threat's there.
right, right.
Like saying that he should legally be allowed to confiscate your gun, that's a bit of a hard pill to swallow. Do I think?
Right, like that's what I was saying. Is like it depends on the family that you wind up in these kind of situations.
Yeah. So if there's a petition where like the person who's involved can then say, like at a court, I feel like my family, like in the situation, this person could also be suicidal as a result of the family's abuse, and they might know that the removal of the gun opens up the abuse further. This is a person who might actually be driven further to suicide because of the potentiality. So I think that if you were to enact a red flag law like that, and if I were to support it, because I kind of support families being able to do that, only in the condition that the family member who they're talking about can also make a case for themselves, can then come into the court and say, well, here's the reason I would like to keep my weapon. And then he can open up the books on, my father abuses me. I have this as a self-defense
That
mechanism.
forces reporting.
It can force reporting.
Yeah, and I see positives and negatives to that. So, anywho, we were on a list of political positions held by candidates.
We were.
Do we want to continue down that line, or are we going to be? I'm honestly surprised that this went to gun control as in depth as it did. I didn't realize we did disagree as much as we do.
We finally found it.
Yeah. Did we? Guys, did we just witness Ocean versus Cirrus in a debate?
This is not the first time it's happened. Actually,
True. Yeah,
we've had this issue on morality before as well. But I feel
that's true. Yeah.
I feel like if there's two people that agree on everything on morality, they're probably lying to each other.
You're probably right. So, but we can agree on that.
That said, so Joe Biden is pro-abortion, but he wants there to be some limits. What are his limits, though? Let's
Ocean
see.
destroys Cirrus with facts and logic. What?
I don't know if that's what happened there. I think we
both made pretty good cases.
I think we both just ended up like agreeing.
We wound up traveling a lot of nuance.
Let's see.
Because I think that some of your questions did get me to like clarify some of my positions that I don't think I'd made clarifications on yet. Did it feel the same way for you or no?
Repeat that one more time. I was actually.
I said I think that some of the questions that you asked like gave me a chance to kind of like think through some clarifications on some positions.
Yeah. I think for yours as well, when I was like, I kind of agree with the red flag law thing on families, and you're just like, well, hold on a second, what about bad families? I'm like, oh shit, families? You're right. Yeah. Hold on, let me just deal with that real quick. Let's see here. So Joe Biden, his position on abortion in the 1980s, he supported an amendment that would have let states reverse Roe v. Wade. He was quoted as saying that Roe v. Wade went too far. But he has changed his position.
I imagine he has.
Yeah. While in the Senate, he's voted on a ban for late-term abortions. That was as recently as 2003. But in 2016, he said, I'm a little bit of an odd man out in my party. He's not directly disavowed casting those original votes. Okay, so... Yeah, no, I'm not with Biden on this.
What was his position?
He wants to ban late-term abortions. And he's also... which of course means that you can be loosey-goosey with your definition of late term if you really wanted to.
Usually when people say that, they mean third trimester.
Yeah, and I'm of the opinion that third trimester should still be allowed because there are
electively.
There are enough cases of people who don't even know that they're pregnant until they are in the third trimester, where it's relevant at that point to them, but it wasn't relevant on any point beforehand.
So somebody in the chat said, I wouldn't call this Ocean versus Cirrus quite yet. Too much discussion and working towards a consensus, or trying to. I think that's just how we discuss things. So like we're two people that are like solution-oriented humans. So as far as abortion is concerned, I tend to be of the position where it's like, it's not my debate and I'm pro-choice.
I'm of the position that it is my debate and I'm pro-choice.
Right. And like... Yeah, and I feel that, and I think we've had this conversation before about like when in abortion debate preps. Like I know the issue, and I know like most, if I recall polls that I've read correctly, that most people are generally pro-choice but against third trimester, and that's a position that's like. I think that's Biden's position ultimately, like, as far as described, right? It's kind of in line with like most of America.
Well, that's probably why he has the position as he does there.
It might be that, yeah.
I feel like he has the position because it is the majority position.
I want to say Democratic platform is absolute pro-choice, like the party platform position.
Oh, let's see here. So it looks as though, yeah, that's probably the case because there's only 3 other candidates who actually agree with Joe's perspective on this.
Who are the 3?
Amy Klobuchar's.
I could have predicted that. Yeah, go for it.
Joe Sestak and Marianne.
Who the fuck?
Probably one of the like 1%ers.
Yeah, that dropped out recently.
And then
anyway.
Marianne Williamson.
That surprises me.
I mean,
I wouldn't have guessed Williamson. I would have if you had like.
Yeah. So
if you had asked me to guess, I probably would have thrown out Tulsi.
So Amy Klobuchar is specifically anti-third trimester.
Okay.
Joe Sestak says he supports a woman's right to choose, but would support limited restrictions on abortions obtained later in pregnancy. But I do not see anything on. Let's see. Yeah, no, I don't see anything specifically on Marianne's position, but I'd imagine it's probably in line with that as well. My problem with that position again, though, is that you've taken the edge cases.
You raise a good point.
You've said fuck those minority cases, and when you say fuck the minority cases, I can just say, all right, I'm okay with Jim Crow laws as well. Fuck the minority cases of abuse.
Here's the thing that I have against that with that regulation is that I get the moral argument for it, and like even empathize with it. Like I said, I kind of agree with it, but I don't. I think that you raise a significant point when it comes to minority cases. I don't think that people generally want to elect to have a third trimester abortion.
It usually doesn't. Usually it's not an elective thing then.
Yeah.
Like there's a few situations where an elective choice happens in that point. Situation 1, they realize there's a medical issue where something might happen on the table.
Right.
And it's actually considered elective then as well.
Is it? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I have 2 partners who have had to have abortions. Both of them would have died on the table, as was described to them by their doctor.
And it's considered election.
And it was considered an elective choice because if it would not kill you beforehand, or if it's even just that there's a chance, they legally count it as elective. This is why when we hear
you just convinced me to be unfettered.
when we have the statistic that is thrown at us of 98% of abortions are from elective choices. Well, yes, but let's look at what those elective choices actually are.
Yeah.
In 2 of the cases that I am literally attached to, in both of those cases they were considered elective, and my partner would have died. So anybody supporting pro-life in regards to that data is telling me to my face my partner should be dead.
Right.
And you know what? I'm okay with them telling me that my partner should be dead because
a lot of people hold the position of life of the mother, though, being like a a reason to have one.
They do, but they also use the elective statistic without realizing what goes on.
What
in
goes
the
on
elective
in the elective statistic? Okay.
That's the problem. Emmett is saying in the chat, I'm one of them. They're partners. This is true. But no, my point. So when it comes to conflict, I am a proponent of escalation theory. I'm pretty certain you probably are as well. Escalation theory basically is that if a conflict's battle stage has gotten to point A, then all participants in the conflict are now operating on point A of the conflict, all of them. So you and a person are fighting, they bust out a knife. If you don't have a knife on hand, you're no longer participating in the argument properly, or the fight at that point. You too should have a knife. But if you pull out a gun, the person who you're battling with should also pull out a gun because you've escalated the conflict to that point. Everybody should.
Speaking of guns,
yeah, like it's in escalation theory, points are not made in an effort to de-escalate conflict so much as it's understanding that once the conflict has escalated to a certain point, you're now operating on that battlefield. As an example that's happened with my family, my stepfather at one point decided to yell at me for one of the things that I said, so I started yelling back at him, and he tried to say that I'm not allowed to yell at him, to which I said, I'm an adult and you escalated the conflict.
Right.
You did that, which means now I get to yell. I didn't get to yell until you decided to break that. Now that we're here, and I'm gonna play by the rules you set out. The rules of the conflict are less laid by the individuals and more laid by the arena.
I agree with the logic there. I just tend to want to favor more towards a de-escalation.
Yeah, and you can favor de-escalation.
But I agree with you on the rules.
Yeah, so, but the rules of the conflict are that if you're already in an escalated point of conflict, you now operate under the rules of the It's one of the issues.
Don't be the one to escalate, or else you're the one that's entering the new weapons on the field.
It's the same issue that happens with like nuclear war. You don't enter nuclear war without expecting nuclear war to be declared on you. Yeah, that's a point of escalation theory.
Okay.
So, for instance,
I agree with it.
This is why I don't mind if somebody says that, yeah, I think your partner should be dead. Even if they say that they don't mean that, I can point out that no, everything that you've said literally means that. That's the end result. Principle of entailment says that that's where we are now. When they make that point, I'm okay with them saying that because now I can go, cool, I get to take the gloves off. Whatever like dumb shit argument you've been making, that not you specifically, but whoever I'm dealing with, whatever dumb shit argument you've been making this entire time.
My arguments dumb shit arguments.
I get to now play with the kid gloves off.
Down. It's just
you get abused. You get hurt.
Straight up. This is what happens. Like, why did I agree to this fucking? So,
that's escalation theory is also very much a pragmatic theory of conflict.
Yeah, no, this is the reason why I'm like, yeah, we're on the same page here, I think. So we were tying that into abortion, right? You were talking. Okay, so no, it's with the case of like, I think it's minority cases anyway. There isn't necessarily a reason to make it prohibited, because if somebody's making that elective decision, it's probably got a damn good reason for it.
Yeah, and not to mention when you try to make the case against minority cases, this is the argument that was made against things like Jim Crow laws for years. Like, oh, well, it's only a minority of Americans that are affected negatively by this. Why should we do anything about it? Well,
I see. Yeah. Okay.
It's like, this is when me and Jill had...
That was the argument that was made?
It's one of the many. One of the many ones. When me and Jill were having our debate, as it were, that was one of the points I used on him, was like, yes, I too am in favor of Jim Crow laws. I mean, you think minority cases don't matter? Fine. That's fine. We're here. Again, escalation theory of conflict.
The law should be like something that takes into
It's there
consideration.
to protect the minority cases.
Exactly.
Like, it's there to protect everybody, but minority cases are the ones that 9 times out of 10 end up being the ones that are abused.
That's where the law needs to comment. Because, like, yeah. Anyway, this is another one that we're on the same page about. So abortion, Joe Biden is... Uh-oh. We have a conversation happening off screen.
We do. What's going on? Oh. What needs fixing?
There's something happening, guys.
Why did a screwdriver just get taken from my room? I'm so confused.
You're screwed.
I'm so confused. Anyway, there's only
So-
there's a few more points to get into before I do want to wrap this up at some point. We're at
Yeah, one day.
We're at two. We're at two and a
so-
half hours hammered out episode thus far.
Yeah, that's longer than we usually go, but you know.
It is. So Joe Biden is against Medicare for all.
Okay.
Which
We disagree with
Yeah,
him on. Right.
that's-
So
I'm of the opinion that our medical system sucks. We happen to have, for somebody that seems to be so against doing any major changes to anything and just expanding the shit that we already have, that
I
seems
don't-
like a necessary expansion.
I actively don't understand the defense of private insurance.
There isn't one.
I actively don't understand it.
One of the only
keep hearing-
defenses I've heard against it that like I considered, and I only considered it because it was a position that my mom had for some reason. Like she works in the insurance industry or worked in the insurance industry, but she made the point that that what was it? She doesn't want immigrants taking over, or not taking over, but she doesn't want immigrants taking advantage of healthcare whilst there are people in America not getting it. I'm just like, what if we just took care of both? What if we just treated everybody as human? What if we did that? Wouldn't that be a weird novel concept?
Yeah, it's like
Like I wasn't aware that if somebody immigrated to a country they were less human. I wasn't aware of that.
you can even
That's new-
fix.
that's
If
new
you
to
wanted
me.
to fix that, you can just say, use a. It's not really a. Never mind. There's actually not a. I was saying like citizenship card or whatever the fuck, but that doesn't work, and it's not even ethical anyway, so it doesn't matter.
But let's see here.
So
He wants to build on the ACA's foundation, which is something that Bernie disagrees
the
on.
atheist community of Austin.
No, Affordable Care Act. I'm of the opinion that the Affordable Care Act needs to be completely fucking overhauled. Like the version of the ACA that we got was so fucked up and
terrible.
bastardized
It was fucking terrible.
that
It wound
it
up just increasing taxes on people with that mandate crap, and then
Yep.
the mandate got overturned, and the whole thing was gutted.
like
so-
like honestly, don't expand on the ACA. Take the idea that the ACA had and then just build a fucking new platform with it. The old one is
Problem
fucking
is
bad.
that you have, like, the ACA is what we wound up getting. Like, I agree with you. Like in an idealist world, Medicare for all, but
Mhm.
when you have a Republican Senate, which it doesn't look like we're not going to have a Republican Senate anytime soon.
Mhm.
You're probably going to have to come up with a solution that involves private healthcare or privatized insurance in there somewhere, which I think is
You can have
The-
things like for instance dental. Like just have that as your private like
I
dental and vision.
I think that dental and vision.
That's what
like-
Canada does.
I
That's their
know, but
private
I
industry.
think that it should be part of universal coverage. Like dental, that's something that I don't need to go to the doctor for the flu every year.
True, you should be able to get a checkup without paying arm and leg. You should be able to have
Sure.
a primary care physician.
Yeah. That's not the argument I'm going with. Because I agree with you. But what I will say is you should go to a dentist every year. So it's like, yeah, we'll give you universal health care, except for the thing that you really ought to be doing every year.
Mhm.
And really every 6 months, but every year at least. So the idea of like that gets into like, yeah, let's cover everything except for what you actually need. For a lot of people, like when you get into like I had this conversation when like there's a lot of discussions about healthcare insurance and all that shit. A lot of people that are young, the thing that they really need is catastrophic health insurance and a dental plan. But there's
Fair.
no such thing as catastrophic and dental. Like it's not a thing. So
Canadian Emperor Jackson says thoughts on privatized police and investigation agencies, like for example the Pinkertons Detective Agency. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. If somebody wants to be, what's up?
Sorry, go ahead. That's
I
like some libertarian shit.
I recognize
but
that
yeah.
like there's an idealized view of private investigators. I recognize that.
I too saw Jessica Jones.
But at the same time, I'm of the opinion that that's a system that ends up getting like a lot of abuse. And I'm not really pro systems that have abuse. I also recognize that like the police force as it is pretty freaking corrupt. Like there's too much not public money that gets sent into the police force, and that's something.
Police
that
is like
bugs
a
me.
whole different conversation.
Yeah.
I've put forward the idea before that if you do not have a body cam recording of an arrest that is submitted to the court, that the arrest should be declared defunct. Like that's been a position of mine that I'm like, but that's fairly extreme, and I know it's fairly extreme.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm tired of this. Oh, my body cam wasn't on.
If your body cam wasn't on,
Then the
looks
arrest
like,
is defunct.
looks like
Right,
you don't
that's it.
have an arrest.
Right.
Weird.
That's like I think that's the way to get around that problem is like, well, it should be on the responsibility of the police doing the arrest to turn their goddamn body cam on. So that
It's almost like we get onto police for every other instance of not doing your job properly. This should be
Right.
another one.
It should just be part of the gig. Like, make sure the body cam is on and make sure that footage is turned in with your arrest report. Because if it's not turned in with your arrest report, then you don't have an arrest and you have to let the person go. And then whatever conditions that brought to that arrest are inadmissible or something. Like there's like a whole set of dominoes that you could build there that'd be like, turn your goddamn camera on. Like get like DAs to wag fingers and be like, if you get me an arrest and you don't have camera footage, and like that screws my case.
At that point,
that's what I want.
it's your hearsay versus the cops' hearsay, and
Mhm.
the cops always are
Win.
favored in hearsay battles because
Right.
who are you going to believe, the upstanding
So
police
let's
officer or the
settle
criminal?
Let's make it so that they have to have their body cam footage.
And look what
so-
happens when the number of arrests goes down.
Right. But we won't be able to make our quotas. I think that goes for like speeding tickets too, but usually have a camera in the front of the car that catches everything. So,
Mhm.
like I would include like a car camera. It doesn't need to be like a body cam. If you have a car camera that catches everything, then great. But you need to have, I think that a body cam, especially if you're like, you're going into someone's house and arresting them, your body cam better be on. So, anywho, I think that helps the police conversation. It's not an end all be all, but
Fair. But with that said, I think that's about where we need to wrap things up
okay.
because we have.
I think we can fairly wrap it up there. As we haven't gone into like who we think should do good on the election and all that shit, but this is a good examination of like the issues. I rarely go political, so
examination of the
People got
issues
a
through the lens
sense
of
of
a
where I'm
creepy
at.
uncle.
say what?
An examination of the issues through the lens of a creepy uncle.
Oh boy. Biden, why?
Do you like that healthcare, that Medicare for all? I don't. I'm sorry.
Get off my shoulders. Don't touch them. I don't want it.
Damn it. Okay. Well, that said, thank you guys for coming out on to watch Hammered Out today.
Yeah,
it's been
absolutely.
a fun conversation.
Happy Thursday. This was fun. We should actually. I think that we could probably pick this up even
Yeah, I'd
and
be
go
okay with
further
that.
into the.
We do
like
a
just
a 0.5 to the discussion next Thursday.
Right, because we gotta like. I think that we definitely want to get into more of the like. I want to go around this election a little bit with you because I want to like kind of pick your brain about where you're at on a lot of the candidates because I think that the reason why we back candidates is probably a little different from each other.
Probably.
But yeah, but I think that the conversation is good. So, and look, it's productive and shit.
Yeah, weird, right? You can disagree and it still like goes places. Strange.
Exactly. Well, thanks for coming and hanging out with us, chat. This was a lot of fun. This is a good Hammered Out episode.
And with that said, see you guys. It's no longer Thursday.